It's Tuesday, September 29. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. The COVID-19 pandemic has claimed almost 1 million lives and resulted in more than 32 million confirmed cases. It has also gone beyond a health and humanitarian crisis. It's also become a global development emergency. The pandemic is expected to drive close to 100 million to extreme poverty, the first such increase since 1998. An estimated additional 265 million people could face acute food shortages by the end of 2020. The International Labour Organization estimates the equivalent of 500 million jobs have been lost so far this year. The COVID-19 pandemic has also worsened the financial distress of developing countries as export, tourism and remittance receipts are all down to a trickle. Leaders from governments and international organizations met on Tuesday, September 29 to discuss specific actions to help countries weather the devastating financial and socioeconomic impacts caused by COVID-19. The meeting was convened by United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Prime Minister of Canada Justin Trudeau, and Prime Minister of Jamaica Andrew Holness.
Our objective in organizing this high-level event was to secure buy-in at the highest political level to mount an ambitious, coordinated international effort commensurate with the magnitude of the crisis. We have succeeded in gaining the support of world leaders to take bold and decisive action to mitigate the devastating impact of the pandemic.
Around the world, the pandemic has worsened long-standing challenges of poverty, inequality, and climate change. Last spring, Canada convened a high-level meeting with Prime Minister Holness of Jamaica and the Secretary-General to discuss a global response as we build a better, more equitable system.
The high-level meeting reflects the work done over the last 5 months by some of the world's leading economists to find policy options and solutions to the devastating social and economic impacts of COVID-19.
The problem is to mobilize the resources to allow the developing countries to be able to do the same. And that is the reason we have been gathering, and that is the reason we had the first summit, then the working groups, then the Ministers of Finance meeting, this summit, the following in December, to pave the way for the bodies that need to take decisions on these, the boards of the IMF, the World Bank, the G7, the G20, to be able to mobilize the resources to allow all other countries to be able to have similar packages in relation to their economies.
The increase in positive COVID-19 cases persists. For the latest figures from the Health and Wellness Ministry, we get this update from Melvin Pennant.
As at Tuesday morning, Jamaica's COVID-19 death toll stands at 101. On Monday, another 8 deaths related to the novel coronavirus COVID-19 were reported. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the latest mortalities are an 82-year-old female from St. Anne, a 28-year-old female from St. Catherine, a 78-year-old male from Clarendon, a 65-year-old male from St. Catherine, a 96-year-old male from St. Catherine, a 65-year-old male from St. Catherine, a 78-year-old male from St. Catherine, and a 59-year-old male from St. Catherine. 238 new COVID-19 positive cases were also reported over the past 24 hours. The total case number is now 6,408. 29 recoveries were recorded on Monday, pushing that total to 1,770. The active number of cases on the island is 4,451. It is also disclosed that there are 26 moderately ill and 10 critically ill patients. A total of 137 persons infected with the virus are currently hospitalized. While 11 persons are quarantined in a government facility, 21,041 are quarantined at home. At this time, there are 480 imported cases, 381 cases of local transmission, while 801 are contacts of confirmed cases. 236 are associated with the St. Catherine workplace cluster, and 4,510 cases are under investigation. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
People over the age of 60 and those with underlying issues form part of the most at risk of critical illness and death if they contract COVID-19. For this reason, the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, and his team have stepped up their vigilance of these groups, sending health aides to health centers, homes, and communities, and touring these entities himself. We caught up with Dr. Tufton and his team as he toured the Vineyard Town Golden Age Home on Monday. The Vineyard Town Golden Age Home is one of the largest of its kind in Jamaica, with over 400 residents, excluding staff. With all the residents over the age of 60, they're all at risk of being critically affected by COVID-19. In the UK alone, the BBC has reported that over 12,526 Golden Age Home residents have died from COVID-19. Here at the Golden Age Home, the staff is working to ensure their residents remain safe. The compound is cleaned at least 3 times daily.
The regular cleaning and the dedicated.
That cleaning is in place from the time COVID started.
Yes.
From Minister McKinney, we had hired some persons to do the cleaning.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton and Mayor of Kingston, His Worship Deborah Williams, were told that all staff members must wear their mask at all times. Residents wear their masks once physical care is being administered.
It's a weekly thing that we send out reminders. You have to wear your mask, you have to observe the protocols. And we'll continue to do that because we know the vulnerability of the group, the community that we are managing. So we'll continue to do that.
After touring the facility and meeting with staff members, the health minister says he's satisfied with all safety protocols being observed.
It's important that the protocols are followed. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has worked with the respective organizations, the local municipal council, the KSA, and the management team of the respective agencies. In this instance, this is the largest facility of its kind. I'm told not just in Jamaica, but in the Caribbean. Over 400 persons stay here, over 150 staff members. And so the coming and the going with the staff, the moving around of the persons who stay here, it's important that certain protocols are observed. Having looked and listened and observed, I'm satisfied that those protocols are in fact in place from the point of the worker coming to work each day, changing out into work garb, sanitizing, the wearing of the masks, through to the temperature checks on a daily basis of the persons who stay here, as well as an isolation facility, and just restrictions generally in terms of movement from one place to the next. Is a demonstration that there is an observance of the protocol.
He encourages other entities to follow the safety protocol set out by the Health Ministry.
The response to COVID right now is going to be heavily dependent on all of us playing a role. It's going to be heavily dependent on the protocols that we establish for work, for leisure, for industry of one form or another, and in this instance for a home for the aged, being observed. And if it is the protocol that is going to help us to manage the risks. So even if one person comes in with COVID, the fact that they wear the mask and they sanitize, they could theoretically come in and leave and not spread COVID. Now, we don't want that. We don't want even one person, but the fact is, all of the measures come together to create the type of protection that is required.
His Worship Deborah Williams thanked the staff for their vigilance.
Also, we take this opportunity to thank the leadership here, the members of staff, and the members of the executive who have, since the start of COVID, have been very, very hardworking and committed to protecting the population resident here and across the country. And so we just want to take the opportunity to also say thank you to them. And I know they will continue to work earnestly in doing so.
The Golden Age Home has been operating in Kingston for almost 25 years. It was established to provide residential care for the indigent elderly of the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew. An independent review team is to look into concerns raised by the Caribbean Examinations Council grading system. Chairman of the CXC, Sir Hilary Beckles, says given the challenges with COVID-19 this year, it was anticipated that a period of review and possible revisions would take place. His announcement follows complaints throughout the region about discrepancies in grades received by exam candidates. He says every formally reported case will be reviewed and remedies will be applied where possible. Sir Hilary issued this information on Monday afternoon. The Ministry of Health and Wellness plans to employ more health aides as it steps up its response to the community spread phase of the new coronavirus. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton joined a group of health aides during their public health tour of Downtown Parade in Kingston.
I've been around in about 6 parishes over the last 4 or 5 days, from Montego Bay all the way back now to Kingston, and it's a standard feature of the work of the community health aides. Behind me in the backdrop here you see these community health aides. We've hired so far almost 1,000. We are going to hire an additional 300 to 400. They have been trained, and a big part of their job is to go out in communities, in town centers, and be the COVID response representative on the ground to encourage the message, which is so important for everyone to follow, particularly in this time when we're having community transmission.
For the last 7 days, we have been to Lawrence Tavern and all the town centers, from Lawrence Tavern, Stony Hill, Golden Spring, Essex Hall, Parks Road, Constant Spring, Halfway Tree, Cross Road, and downtown Kingston. And we have been teaching persons how to actually put on the mask, how to take off the mask, how to discard it, proper way to sanitize your hand, proper way to do hand washing, and how to dispose of the garment, the gowns, and so on. We have also been educating the persons, of course, maintaining the social distancing, and if you are ill, stay at home.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness is clamping down on entities that are importing alcohol-based hand sanitizers into Jamaica. The ministry says they must first have an approved permit in hand from the Standards and Regulation Division of the ministry before the supplier ships the product. The warning follows reports of unregulated hand sanitizers on shelves for sale to consumers. There has been increase in the demand of hand sanitizers because of the coronavirus pandemic. There has also been increased complaints of skin irritations from some hand sanitizers flooding the market. In a statement on Monday, the Health Ministry notes that shipments which arrive in the island prior to being given a permit are not guaranteed clearance from the ports and risk being seized and destroyed. The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, has been saving lives and improving health and well-being. That's the theme of the 2020 annual report presented to the ongoing 58th PAHO Directing Council's virtual meeting this week. PAHO Director Carissa F. Etienne presented the report on Monday. We have highlights of the presentation. PAHO Director Carissa Etienne says COVID-19 has affected health, the economy, and the way of life in almost every country in the Americas. With this in mind, she summarized PAHO's strategies, interventions, and achievements in its main areas of technical cooperation during the reporting period.
We continue to promote PHC 30-30-30, the Regional Compact on Primary Health Care for Universal Health, which was launched in Mexico City in April of 2019. Using every opportunity to strongly advocate for reducing barriers that hinder access to health by at least 30%, for increasing public expenditure on health to at least 6% of GDP, and for allocating at least 30% of these resources to the first level of care by 2030. Our COVID-19 experiences have explicitly demonstrated that these are essential components for an effective response to this pandemic and for post-COVID national rebuilding well into the future. In terms of continued procurement of essential supplies, disruptions in global supply chains, which occurred as a result of far-reaching COVID-19 related travel and transport restrictions, together with reduced or redirected manufacturing of many products, including active pharmaceutical ingredients, raised the specter of shortages of essential medicines, diagnostic kits, vector control supplies, vaccines, and other health technologies in member states.
The PAHO boss says special focus was placed on the most vulnerable.
Epidemiological data has confirmed that persons over the age of 60 and persons living with underlying health conditions, including non-communicable diseases, were more likely to have serious disease and to die from COVID-19. Further, we have painfully observed that persons residing in conditions of vulnerability, such as indigenous peoples, Afro-descendants, residents of nursing homes, and those with limited access to health services were also more likely to have poor outcomes once infected. We made some early donations to countries such that by the 28th of February 2020, some 29,512 COVID-19 PCR tests were dispatched to 24 countries, as early as February 2020. And by the 15th of March 2020, 9.72 tons of personal protective equipment had been forwarded to 25 countries from the organization's strategic stockpile based in Panama.
The report also describes PAHO's efforts to improve its internal efficiency and ensure continued transparency and accountability in all its operations. On the flip side, the PAHO boss called for more investment in health systems.
To ensure that they are inclusive, expansive, adaptive, and responsive. We must invest in our health workers, in the health services that we offer, in the quality of care that we provide, in our health information systems, in science, and in our communities.
Ms. Etienne says COVID-19 has shown the inequities in health and social systems. It's shown the need for more cohesion in all aspects of the economy.
We must state unequivocally that there can be no competition between health and the economy, because health and the economy are inextricably intertwined. Without healthy people to drive production, to enjoy the fruits of their labors, and to boost the economy, there will only be societal, economic, and developmental stagnation. Indeed, a healthy nation is a wealthy nation, and every life matters. Similarly, the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the health of populations, health systems, and social protection mechanisms, high priority public health programs such as immunization, and its stark amplification of inequities and inequalities in health will demand adaptations, innovation, and reorientation of our technical cooperation, as it cannot be business as usual.
Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, has designated Tuesday, September 29, 2020, as a day of mourning in honor of the life of Constable Kemar Francis of the St. Andrews South Division, who was killed in the line of duty. Constable Francis was a member of a team of officers on patrol on Maxfield Avenue in Kingston 11 that responded to reports of gunfire shortly before midnight on Friday, September 25. In making their way to the community, the officers were met with gunfire on Pretoria Road. The police defended themselves, but Constable Francis was shot. He later succumbed to his injuries while undergoing treatment at hospital on September 26. In a symbolic recognition for the day of mourning, the JCF flag will be flown at half-mast. Uniformed members will wear partial black. A moment of silence will also be observed during briefing parades and other official meetings throughout the day. Gabriel Thompson now brings us up to speed with the latest market movement. Here's a business report.
In Monday's trading session, the JSE combined index declined by 1,014 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 79 stocks, of which 30 advanced, 31 declined, and 18 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 8 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, 1834 Investments Limited, and Blue Power Group. Stocks declined for Barita Investments Limited, Berger Paints Jamaica, and Caribbean Cement Company. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company, Caribbean Assurance Brokers, and Dolphin Cove Limited. Pulse Investments Limited was the volume leader with 2.5 million units, followed by Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with 1.9 million units and Barita Investments Limited with 1.4 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Monday, September 28 ended trading at $142.25. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $107.15. The pound sterling traded for $185.70, and the euro ended trading at $168.11. Oil prices fell on Tuesday as Europe and the United States grappled with a surge in new coronavirus infections, and investors were cautious ahead of the first U.S. presidential debate. Brent crude futures fell 11 cents to $42.32 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 13 cents to $40.47 a barrel. And that's it for this edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, authorities in St. Lucia are reporting the recovery of 4 dead bodies over a period of 3 days. More in this report.
The murky waters of Cicero Beach concealed the lifeless form of Lorena Daniel, a resident of Tiroche Castries. The recovery of her body 50 yards off the coast was made by Marine Police on Friday, September 25th. Daniel was a helper to many of the vendors at the Castries market. They spoke to News Force on Monday, but declined to have their likeness shown on camera. The vendors remember the deceased fondly. They allege she had a battle with substance use disorder.
For Lorena, it's a sad thing to learn about the passing of her death. She was inside of her drinking and stuff like that, she was kind. Whatever you ask her to do, she would do it for you, she would help you. She was a nice person regardless of her alcoholic situation. Lorena was a nice girl. She came from by my home, even Kabish. Her sister, all of us was going to school together. Up to now, me and the sister are good friends. Lorena was always in the market with us, buying, carrying load for us. Yeah, we saw Lorena on Thursday. She was there together with us, carrying loads for us, we pay her. She did giving jokes with us, she did on scene. That one was a shock, unbelievable. Because she would come there and she would, even by Valmo, when I was by Valmo, she would come and carry my load for me. And we would give her $2, $3 just carrying a little box. She used to do a little thing to drink her alcohol.
Friends of the deceased say she frequented 3 main areas in the Castries Basin: Serenity Park, the Castries Market, and the CDC buildings near the Castries Market. They are perplexed by the circumstances surrounding her death. Police, as of Monday afternoon, had not issued a formal statement on Lorena Daniel's demise. Mere hours after the discovery of Daniel's body, another body washed up on the shores of the Cul-de-Sac Bay on Saturday, September 26. The victim has been identified as 60-year-old resident of Cicero, Vernon Emmanuel.
At 7:46 hours in the morning, Fire Service Headquarters received a call for assistance for a body which was found at the Hess Beach. One crew responded from headquarters. On arrival, they found a male body, pulseless, zero pupil reaction, and with rigor mortis already set into the body. The scene was left in care of the police who were already on scene.
Loved ones of the deceased turned down a request to speak to News Force on Monday. However, it has been reported that Emmanuel was an outpatient of the Mental Wellness Center. Meanwhile, Another family is looking for answers after the unsettling discovery of a corpse in an advanced state of decomposition in a forested area in Barbados on Sunday, September 27, 2020. Mishak Emile was reported missing since Saturday, September 19, 2020. News Force reached out to relatives, but they declined to go on the record. However, one relative told our news team that despite her search for answers on her loved one's whereabouts, she hopes that the body found in the woods is not Emilie. Sources confirm that a firearm was recovered near the body, which was also found near marijuana plants. The last of the four bodies has been identified as 76-year-old Edgar Delise of Moshi. Delise's decomposing body was found at his residence. A post-mortem is scheduled for later this week. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
In Trinidad and Tobago, Minister of Finance Colm Imbert says difficult decisions will have to be made in the upcoming financial budget as government looks to cut expenditure. But even so, Mr. Imbert says the state's mandatory expenditure amounts to $42 billion annually, which includes salary and wage payments, as well as pensions and social grants. Due to the current climate, Mr. Imbert does not foresee revenue crossing $40 billion for the next fiscal year. Sunil Lala followed the minister's presentation during the Spotlight on the Budget and Economy Forum and has the details.
Spend to fuel economic growth. If you contract too much, you just crash the entire economy. So we have serious decisions to make.
Finance Minister Colm Imbert, as he summarized what could be expected in his upcoming budget presentation. He explained that due to the drop in energy prices and with COVID-19 lingering, he does not expect revenue to come even near expenditure, saying government is obligated to spend at least $42 billion a year, as well as at least $10 billion in subsidies to WASA, TNTech, and other state enterprises. But despite this, Mr. Imbert pointed out that Trinidad and Tobago has done well to manage the local economy despite worldwide layoffs and contracting of the world economy. The minister said difficult decisions will have to be made, but assured that there will be no retrenchment at this time.
We can't cut pensions, we can't cut social welfare benefits and so on. We have no plans at this point in time to retrench anybody in the public service. But we have to understand our situation. With the best will in the world, I don't see revenue crossing $40 billion in 2021.
And even with all of this, Mr. Imbert insisted that devaluation of the TT dollar is not an option at this time. He said it would increase the cost of living and would have trade unions immediately demanding higher wages.
Inflation will go from 1% to 6% or 7% immediately, and the standard of living in Trinidad and Tobago would decline immediately. So we continue at this time, now that foreign inflows are very low, to believe that devaluation is not the answer at this time.
The minister, meanwhile, criticized experts in 2015 who suggested that Trinidad and Tobago should have devalued the TT dollar 10 to 1, saying that all foreign reserves could have evaporated within a year. But Mr. Imbert said there is still in excess of $7 billion of foreign reserves and an increased import cover of 8.7 months.
We stabilized the decline in foreign reserves, and we stabilized the decline in import cover, and our reserves have in fact grown over the last year or two, and our import cover has grown now almost 9 months.
The finance minister also refuted claims that government mismanaged the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. He said despite significant withdrawals, the HSF contains more funds now compared to 2015. Sonolala, TTT News.
A professor from the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus in Barbados says the country's police officers need modern tools to fight crime. More from Barbados today.
Lawmen in Barbados need the right tools, including modern facilities, if they are to successfully arrest the crime situation. That's the view of Dr. Justin Robinson, Professor of Finance at the University of the West Indies Gayville campus. Professor Robinson made the comments as he delivered the feature address at the launch of the book entitled Policing a Dynamic Barbados, written by former Deputy Commissioner of Police, Bertie Hines.
If we are to have the police play the role we want them to play in our society, police stations and offices cannot be the dingy old places they currently are. You know, I was, certainly as chairman of the NIS, I was especially pleased to be involved in the funding of that citizen security project, where we repaired the male barracks at Blackrock and that spanking new police station in Hastings. And I think that needs to become the norm. When we experience crime, we want the police to be there for us, but we ignore the fact that they work really in substandard conditions most of the time. And we must find the money. I mean, I think we must find the money within our resources to radically improve the physical infrastructure surrounding policing. The police need to be able as well, along with that, embrace the new technologies. Policing, I think, is not going to be effective if they can't develop an effective social media strategy. That is the world we live in. So the police's presence, in terms of interacting with the community, the police need to develop a presence within social media. And that cannot happen in the police stations we have now. We need modern facilities with all of the Wi-Fi, the bandwidth that they can engage society that they are asked to police.
In sports, come November, the New Zealand cricket team will play its first of 3 2020s against the West Indies, the start of a busy domestic summer. The Black Caps last took a field in March when they played Australia in a one-day international without fans in Sydney. All scheduled series in the last 6 months have been cancelled because of the coronavirus pandemic. That T20 series against the West Indies will be followed by 2 test matches. New Zealand will then play Pakistan in 3 T20s and 2 tests. The second test starting in Mount Maunganui on December 26, Boxing Day. It will play Australia in 5 T20s in February and March, then Bangladesh 3 one-day internationals and 3 T20s. The New Zealand government has granted conditional approval to allow the West Indies and Pakistan series to go ahead. And that's the news on PBCJ. Continue watching PBCJ because we are the People's Station. Stay safe.